And in the last, I think, decade, there's been a lot more emphasis on training too. Isn't there a special course, officer course for that? So
there is, if you don't mind my just following what Paul had to say. We have a defense information school, and the best and the brightest men and women in uniform attend that school, and they're deployed all over the world. People like Kirk, who have learned, who basically had basic training in dealing with the media. I would say, though, going back to the points that I was making at the beginning about the changed environment, that it is time to take a new look, and we are taking a new look at the curriculum there. Mm-hmm. You have a new generation of communicators in the military. Mm-hmm. They are not just the people who went to our school, who are, the officially anointed public affairs officers. They are the colonels, the majors, the lieutenants who have been in the field in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and elsewhere, who have had to, because of the nature of the deployment and the circumstances in which they find themselves, communicate in ways they never have either thought about or been trained to do. That's had some really interesting unintended consequences. Mm-hmm. The most interesting, in my view, has been you've had these people come out of the battlefield with new lessons learned that I think are very applicable and need to be integrated into the training that goes on for those who deal professionally with communications. And in fact, the first time I ever met Dave Petraeus, our conversation focused on how can we get some of those who have worked with you, under you, on the battlefield to do a stint in our shop so that we can begin to incorporate and integrate the talents on both sides, remove the stovepipes, and produce what I think will be even better new officers.
Right. Kirk, do you want to speak to that? Because I know you have experience both here and out there. So.
Right. I think that's a terrific idea. I think he's absolutely right in that our primary communicators and spokespersons, if you will, are the soldiers and the people who are going to interact. It's not the public affairs officers. And we facilitate, and we are a conduit to linking the media to our troops, because ultimately the troops are the ones that are going to tell the story and let their actions speak for themselves in a lot of cases. I agree that it's a good idea to look at the curriculum at the Defense Information School. And I will tell you that as a brigade public affairs officer, and a brigade is about 4,000 soldier formation. We did a lot of training, media awareness training for them, workshops and things that I was involved with, not only for the leaders, but for the soldiers as well, because a lot of times embedded reporters, they're not just going to be around and exposed to the leaders in a unit, but they'll be with the soldiers, the troopers, the rank and file. An infantryman is part of an infantry squad, for example. And those guys don't need to be forgotten. We owe it as leaders to involve them as well. The comment the General made about staying in your lane is absolutely critical, and that's something that we reinforce time and time again. Sometimes it falls on deaf ears, but this is all part of the lessons learned. But I'll relay one aspect. I thought my media training program was great and going swimmingly, and we were out. I was out on a mission. Actually, was on a mission with our cavalry squadron, and we were riding in the Humvee. And one of the soldiers was kind of talking and bantering and carrying on, and I was sitting in the back. And we were heading down Route Jackson in Baghdad, and the vehicle commander, who was a young staff sergeant, said, "Hey, shh. We have media in the vehicle." And I said, "Where?" And I started looking around. And then I had to stop and explain to him that I was a public affairs officer. I'm one of you guys. I'm not the media. But it reminded me that as much work as we had put into training our soldiers about media awareness, we still had a long way to go, because sometimes there's a disconnect. A guy in uniform with a camera, to them, even though my rank was clearly on my body armor and I had the unit patch and all of that, but to him he was trying to do the right thing, and he was trying to keep his men professional. He wasn't trying to censor what the guy was saying, but he was kind of using some salty cavalryman type language, and he was worried that I would be offended or that would misrepresent the unit. So those are the kinds of things that you see at the lower levels, the tactical levels, and it's just a reminder that we have to keep we have to keep with it and maintain that training posture.
Right.
Josh, can I pile on for a second?
Sure.
A small, little-known fact, I don't know if you can know it, Elisabeth, but every year about 40 Marine lieutenant colonels and colonels who are new commanders, newly minted commanders, spend 2 days at the New York Times where they are exposed to the culture of journalism.
Right.
They do ride-alongs with reporters, both print at the Times and broadcast. A similar program is hosted by the LA Times on the West Coast. And it's a fabulous way for these Marines who are headed off to understand the culture of the people who are going to be embedded with them. Going on for decades.
A big proponent of that program was Walter Anderson, the former publisher of Parade magazine, who takes great pride in that.
Well, Arthur Sulzberger was a Marine on Iwo Jima, and he was actually the catalyst for bringing
the father. Yeah.
This is Drew Davis, by the way, and no, thank you for that. That's very good. Doug, you mentioned that it's time to take a new look at the curriculum, and that the people in the military are communicating in ways that they've never thought about before. Journalists are doing the same thing. I mean, we're learning Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and so forth. And the military, it seems like, had aggressively resisted efforts to allow that. I think it was forbidden. And then more recently that you come to embrace the use of this, and in some cases actually even encourage it. One of the Knight News Challenge winners this year was a pilot project in which, like a unit in Afghanistan would have an embedded reporter, and they would be doing social media, Facebook, to sort of give some level of ground truth as what's happening on the ground there to the outside world, and work with the families too, which is a pretty innovative thing. I was just wondering if you could talk more about that. I mean, we have generals now blogging and tweeting and so forth, and the press is doing it as well. That seems like a whole brave new world for both sides.
I think it's a whole brave new world for everybody, and I would say this, that there are huge strengths to the social media, but that nothing is a panacea in communication, and social media is not a panacea in communication. Social media is a tool which offers the ability to reach large numbers of people instantaneously, and is terrific for many things. You're right that the Pentagon within the last year has made it easier for people to use the social media. This is with the Secretary's blessing. And in fact, one of my colleagues, Sumit Agarwal, who came to us from Google, who had been the head of Google's mobile division, has been a real leader in helping us define and understand the ways in which we can effectively use social media. And I'll tell you here that we're going to be even doing one of the TED conferences, a TED conference soon. That having been said, the social media is not the answer to everything, and I personally don't think that the social media is a stovepipe into which you fit all of the other parts of communication in order to figure out how you make it work for Facebook, Twitter, and the others. Facebook and Twitter have been superb tools, as has Skype, for our men and women in uniform deployed overseas to connect with their families. I think that is maybe the single best step forward in helping communication between families that I've seen. We also have outstanding ability to deal with those who are our adversaries, our enemies, on using the social media. I won't get into specific details, but I will say that the feeling that those in a cave are out maneuvering, those at the Pentagon probably is not a truth any longer. But I think I will also say this, that we have some outstanding younger journalists who are coming to to visibility as a result of blogs, and there are some really excellent military blogs. Mm-hmm. But that having been said, I don't believe Facebook and Twitter are their own entities. They are tools, just like print and broadcast media and the internet are, to be used as tools of communication. And if we pretend otherwise and think that this is completely and solely the way of the future, we're making an erroneous zero-sum choice.
Well, I think that there's also pitfalls involved too, and it can be, for lack of a better term, a double-edged sword. Kirk, I mean, you had some run-ins in Baghdad with a blogger. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that.
Well, yeah, that would be a 2-hour discussion in itself. But what we had, the Cliff Notes version is we had a soldier who was writing anonymously a diary about his experiences in Baghdad. There was some problems with that because he was in violation of the policy. He had not disclosed to his chain of command that he was doing that, and that was only the tip of the iceberg because what he was doing was fabricating stories. And unfortunately, the publication wasn't checking those stories. So I soon found myself embroiled in a situation where that was twofold. Number one, we were trying to figure out who this individual was. Number two, we were trying to figure out if what he was saying was actually truthful, because we were talking about, essentially war crimes, and so we had an obligation to investigate that and make sure that what he was relating as fact, did it happen? If it did, then we had to take appropriate action. What we discovered was it was not truthful. It was unfounded, and it just it caused problems, to say the least. And so again, it's a reminder of we're not there to. And what some of the questions I fielded with the media I said it's not a free speech issue. We're not trying to curtail this soldier's right to do that, to be involved and to blog. But he has an obligation as a soldier to be in compliance with the policy. But more than that, he has an obligation to tell the truth.
And by way of background, he wasn't just blogging, out in cyberspace. He was writing it for the New Republic, right?
Yeah,
and it's under the name the Baghdad Diarist, I think.
Yeah, so. The Baghdad Diarist, and you may recall some of this. It was 2007, but he did come forward. But again, having been involved with the investigation and having seen what had happened, very small grains of truth, but mostly embellishment, and it just caused. It created a problem, a distraction for the unit, because a lot of those guys were doing the right thing, and they deserved better. They did not deserve that kind of negative focus and attention on their
Can I just say, what are the rules now about blogging?
Right, I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, what are assuming it's true? I mean, for a soldier on the ground, in infantry, say in Kandahar right now, can he blog?
Go ahead.
Well, yes. I can't get to the absolute, the details of the policy, because to be completely honest, I'm going off of my experience. My tactical experience was 3 years ago, so I haven't seen the policy of late, so I don't know exactly what's in it. But yes, soldiers can blog, but what you have to the stickiest wicket, so to speak, is an operational security. And when these guys are blogging, sometimes what they may believe in their mind, completely innocuous, relating an incident or a situation or a photo is taken, could be something that puts other soldiers in harm's way. And that's what we mean by operational security. And so there has to be a level of oversight. And again, it's not about curtailing an individual's free speech. It's about making sure that what they are doing is not going to put other soldiers in harm's way. So that's really the bottom line.